All right. We are almost ready. Let's make sure we're on the right mic. That looks good. And I see it moving in OBS. We should be good on the sound. If anyone is watching, let me know if the volume needs to go up or down or anything. Yeah, we'll get going. Let me just shuffle the chat back to the front here. The other screen. All right, introduction for folks that might be new. My name is Tim. I go by foamyguy online, Discord, and GitHub, and I'll be working on stuff related to CircuitPython. Particular today, I'm looking at the PYOA library, which is like runs on the PyPortal and allows you to kind of make your own little sort of choose your own adventure type story. You can have a series of screens and buttons on each screen, and the buttons lead you to other screens, and you can kind of lay out the whole logic tree for how you move through it depending on which buttons you press. So I'll be working with that library, and then after that, if there's time, I am planning to jump into the core to try to add some features to TileGrid. But let's take a step back for folks that might not have any idea what I'm talking about. This is all stuff related to CircuitPython. You can find out more on the website here, CircuitPython.org. Thanks, Dexter. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's a neat library. It's not one that I have spent a whole lot of time playing with, but I really like the way that it kind of takes a data file and allows you to build a whole interface out of it. It's a really neat concept. CircuitPython, if you don't know, this is a version of Python that runs on these tiny computers called microcontrollers. I have one loaded up here, which is the PyPortal device. This one happens to have a built-in screen with a touch overlay on it as well. It also has a couple of built-in things like, let's see, if we turn it this way, we can see maybe it has a speaker built into the back. It has a spot where you could plug in a different speaker if you wanted. Has an SD card slot. It has the main brain, which is a SAMD51 on this device, but it also has a ESP32 device on it that communicates back and forth to the main brain to give it internet access. It's got a NeoPixel, and I want to say there's a sensor on here somewhere. Maybe it's just not labeled on the silk screen. Oh yeah, no, it's up here actually. Analog device, ADT, so it has a temperature and humidity sensor on it as well. So this one has got a good mix of different things built into it. The primary things being kind of the screen and the internet access, that ESP32 that's given it access to the internet. A lot of projects built around this device are kind of pulling information from the internet and showing it on the display. So that's what this one is, the PyPortal again, and this runs a version of Python on the device. So if we look at our device, it just plugs in like a thumb drive. So I have CircuitPy as the thumb drive here, and it has this code.py file. And you can just edit your code inside this code.py file. You save it, which I did right there with Control S, and then it will automatically run on the device. So I have it broken out into the REPL here, but I can just do a Control D to get back to my code. And right away, it's just running that latest version of my code, which is really nice. It makes it super quick and easy to iterate through whatever you are trying to make. To wrap up the intro, if you are interested in CircuitPython and you want to help get involved, there are a couple of ways you can do it. If you go to CircuitPython.org, there's a contributing link at the top here. Yeah, Control D will take you back to your CodePy. Control C will break out to REPL, and then Control D will take you back. At this contributing link, though, CircuitPython.org, you click contributing at the top. This is going to take you to a list of all of the pull requests that are open, as well as all the open issues, if you want to take a look at those. So these are two really good ways for folks to get involved. If you're new to the project, you can find a pull request, look at the library. If it's like a device that you have or it's built into one of your microcontrollers, then you could go to that PR and try out the code in it, or just offer feedback on like spelling and grammar and things like that in comments. Any kind of reviews are always appreciated. So that's usually how we get folks started. is by reviewing and testing out PRs. And then if you want to kind of take the next step further, it's going to be look into open issues and try to find an issue that you want to try to tackle and actually make a PR for yourself. And a lot of these ones right now are the missing type annotations. So this is something we started back in October. And basically, we're trying to add the typing information for all the functions inside the library. So Tektrick, I know, Hug Report to Tektrick, they have done a bunch of these, but there's still quite a few that need doing. And so those are a really good spot, again, for folks that are brand new and looking to get involved. The other thing you can do is if you want to support CircuitPython, you can head over to Adafruit.com. Right here, Adafruit.com. This is the company that is paying all the folks who are working on CircuitPython, including, at this point, me. So I joined the Adafruit team this past week to work on CircuitPython. I'll be part-time, and starting in the beginning of the year, I'll be working every Monday on CircuitPython stuff. So Adafruit pays me, and they pay all the folks who work on the project to create the code and to support the community around it, and to go in the Discord and offer support to people in the forums and everywhere else. So if you purchase hardware from them, then you are helping out the CircuitPython project. So you can buy the microcontrollers, you can buy all sorts of things to plug in to the microcontrollers, and sensors and extra little buttons and lights and anything like that you could imagine. And of course, Adafruit also has the Learn system. If you head over to the Learn side, this is where it will show you hundreds and hundreds of different projects that you can do with your microcontrollers. What's my first project? So I am working on catching up on old PRs, so doing the reviews, just like I listed back here on pull requests. I'm working through some of the old PRs, kind of alongside Kattni, to get the libraries caught up. Beyond that, I have worked on a couple of Learn guides. I have done a couple other projects like a screenshotting tool and different stuff like that. Really, it's just whatever comes up. Any way that I can, I will help out. Yeah, good question. So where do I want to start today is on the PYOA library, PYOA, GitHub, CircuitPython, UIOA. Get us there. Okay, so, and there's a guide, I think, for this library. This will tell you what it's kind of about at a high level. Raspberry Pi. PYOA, I think it's this one. They're using a PyGamer. I'm using a PyPortal. 601, half a dozen of another. It's going to work the same. That's one of the nice things about this library, is it works across some different devices, and you don't really have to worry too much about the difference in those devices. So this guide has got an overview of what the library is about. You can see also with the PyGamer, you can add a cursor and then control it with the joystick. So of course the PyGamer doesn't have the touchscreen, whereas the PyPortal does. So a little bit different way to control the buttons, but other than that, the kind of primary interface is the same. Although I guess this is actually a guide specifically for the cursor, isn't it? Let's see if we can find one for just UIOA system overall. I think I've seen it before, but cursor control. Yeah, this is definitely all about the cursor. Got this guide. Oh, display IO guide. Cursor. Choose your own adventure guide. Here we go. This is the one I was thinking of. So this is kind of the primary guide for that PYOA library, which will tell you what the library is about and how you can use it, and some of the history behind it as well, like the design choices. It was kind of modeled after this old HyperCard system that was on, I think, Macs or something like that a long time ago. And so there's some history and some other high-level information about it here. The thing I am working on specifically today is the library is not currently working as intended. So if we go back to my device and load up PYOA simple test. So I don't need this CodePy. This one's pretty much empty. And I'm just gonna take this one and rename it to code. So that way this will be the one that runs. PYOA simple test code. Save that, and it's gonna play some sounds. I don't know how loud. Hopefully they're not gonna come through too loud on the microphone here. So since I changed that outside of PyCharm, sometimes PyCharm doesn't. Sometimes it does recognize that it changed, but sometimes it doesn't. I don't really know why. But you can just do a reload, and that will kind of refresh it. Okay, so the code you can see is actually pretty simple. It's setting up the SD card, which in my case I don't have an SD card plugged in, so it's not actually using it. There's the sound that started playing. I'm just going to press help here real quick so it'll stop. It loads up the graphics, PYOA graphics. It tells it to load the game, which is just a directory where your game files are located. It sets the index of the current card, and then it just starts off by calling display current card, and then current card will get updated as you press buttons, and then it will load you into different screens. So in terms of actual CircuitPython code, there's really not a lot to this. All of the magic, because of this library, is inside the CYOA directory, which has all of the assets that get used, like a bunch of BMP files, the wave files, which are the sounds that were getting played, and then the sort of glue that ties everything together, which is this JSON file. And so inside the JSON, this is where it actually defines all the different cards. Every card gets an entry in this list. So we have like dictionary or object entries here. Each card has an ID. You can give it a background image. You can give it a sound. You can give it an auto advance for how long it will go forward automatically if you wait that long. And then this is basically just a big list of cards, each with all of those properties, and some of them have a couple of more, like buttons, button text, and which ID the button is going to go to when you click on it. And so you can see, like, this is essentially where the application gets programmed in this case. You build out these cards, you tell it which buttons to create, you tell it where the buttons should go when you click them. And then that's really all you have to do. You just load up the graphics and load the game, and then it will parse all of this JSON code and build out all the screens for you. So right now, I'll go back to the camera. Right now I'm on the help screen, so we can go back from the help screen to the home screen. And so now we're back to the home screen, and we have help and start. So help is where we were just a minute ago. You go to home. If we go to start, that will take us on to the next screen here, and you can see it puts some text on the screen, and it gives us yes and no buttons. And in this case, the text is looking a little bit weird because it is displaying an image which happens to be like a grid of pixels. And I think maybe they did this to enhance the effect of this old HyperCard program. I think maybe this HyperCard program looks to be like black and white graphics, and so they might have made grays by having, like a grid of pixels or whatever. So my guess is that they have kind of done that for that aesthetic effect here on this card, although I will mention it does make it a little bit difficult to read. You can make it out if you kind of focus on it, but it's a little tough. I think it'd be nice if we could make this example a little bit easier to read maybe. So that's one thing I want to work on. But the other thing, which is pretty much a bigger issue, is that currently images don't actually work. They're working on my device here because I have already started looking into this and tweaking it to try to make it work. But if I actually go back here, I'm going to rename this to not, because I've already modified this, so I'm going to rename my modified one so that the device won't use it, and then I'm going to just grab the stock one. I'll open up here. And we're going to go to main. We're going to update main. Okay. And now I'm going to copy the stock library without any changes over to my device. So copy this into lib on the device. Not sure why it told me there was already one, because I renamed it, but maybe it hadn't noticed yet. Okay, so saving that file did cause the device to reset, so now it's back to running the thing again. And we're technically on the help screen here, but what you notice that's different this time is that we don't see Adabot. On this screen last time around, it drew Adabot right here. And on the help screen, it drew a background. There was like that green background that looked like a circuit board. And on the next screen, there was also that grid of pixels that made it look gray. And what we have now is no image, so that grid of pixels is not drawn, which then also presents the problem that our text is black, and so now we have black text on a black background, and we can't actually read it. So it's basically not showing the images correctly. And the reason why it's not showing the images correctly is to do with this recent change where we started using the with context to open up files when we use on-disk bitmap. So for folks that aren't familiar, on-disk bitmap, this is a way you can draw a BMP file onto your screen using display.io. There's been an effort recently to go through all the libraries and update all of the instances of where files get opened to use this with context processor. So like we say with, and we open the file, and then we say as the name that we want that file variable to be stored inside of. And then ordinarily we would go inside of this with block. It creates its own block of code. So this whole indented layer in here, we would go inside the with block. We would use our file to do whatever we want. And then whenever we're done using that file, we just break out of the block by unindenting, back out to here. The problem is, though, in this case, when we end this block, when we get done executing all this code right here, and we jump outside of the indentation back down to here, this file gets closed. And once the file is closed, we can no longer show it on the screen. So that's why we're ending up with nothing, no images visible on the screen here. Essentially, we're opening the file. We are creating an on-disk bitmap. We're creating a tile grid. We are appending the tile grid onto our group, but then we're immediately closing the file because we get done with the with block. And once it gets closed, it can no longer be seen on the screen. So we actually need to keep this file open, which means either we need to move this with block like higher up so more stuff is inside of it, or we need to get rid of the with block and just make a exception for Pylint, because Pylint is going to say like, hey, you should use a with block here, but Pylint doesn't realize the rest of the ramifications really. And I think I'm leaning towards the latter, just removing with and going back to the old way and making an exception for Pylint, because if we zoom out a little bit and we look at the context some more, we're inside of this function called setBackground. And the way we want this function to work is the user calls this function, or in this case, really the library calls this function, right? We looked at the user code before, and the user code really doesn't call all that much. It initializes, it loads the game, it displays the current card. That's really all the user code does, but internally, inside display card probably somewhere, it's calling set background. And the way we want that to work is it should set the background and then it should leave it on the screen until set background gets called again. So it should not automatically close itself. It should wait until we call set background again. Then it can close the old file because we're no longer using it. It can open the new file, make the on-disk bitmap, make the tile grid, do all that stuff. Hey there, Daz and Q. Thanks for stopping by. I may have mispronounced your name as well. Daz and AQ01. If you have a preference, let me know. I'm happy to try to remember that. But nonetheless, thanks for stopping by and saying hi. So that's our main problem. And so I think I don't really see a way that we could move the with block up, right? We could move it further out and then there would be more stuff inside of it. So the file would not get closed as soon. but we can't really move the width block like outside of set background. Let's see where this gets called from. So one time from 192 in fade to black, and one time in 221 from display background 4, and it calls set background. I mean, we could maybe move the width to like here, and we open the file and then we pass it to set background, but we're gonna have the same problem. As soon as we leave the width block, the image is no longer gonna be showing. So we really need that file to stay open between function calls. Like, we want to call the function once, it's going to get opened and shown, and then we don't want it to get closed until we call that function again the next time, no matter how long that is. It could be like, a split second later. It could be several minutes later. Like, if the user just lets it sit there and doesn't press any buttons or anything, then it's just going to stay open that whole time. And I don't know of a way that we can like delay the closing of the width block like that. So I think we have to get rid of the width block. The only other thing I could think is like, maybe we could read it into memory. Like, after we open it, let's say maybe we do open it with the width block. And this is kind of how I would do it if it was a text file, maybe. Is like, we could open it with the width block, and then inside the width block, we could read all the contents of it to a variable, and then we could close it because we have the contents in our variable, and when we want to use the contents, we just reference them from our variable. And if it was a text file, that'd be easy to do. We could open it, we could read the text file into a string variable, then we could close it, then we could just use that string variable whenever we want. I think it's trickier for this, though, because it's not a string variable, right? It's not text, it's binary inside of the BMP file. We could maybe read it to like an IOStream? IOStream. So I'm going to head over to the docs and we will see if we can find a way to do this. I think there's like IO. A little slow sometimes. I'm going to see if we can go faster this way. Maybe if we just go import IO, dir IO. So we do have bytes IO and file IO. Here's the other thing I don't like so much about the way these docs work is I don't really want that to highlight everywhere. And of course, now I changed where I was at as well. File IO. Guess I just scrolled down some. Okay. Yeah. This is what we're opening. Oh, but it says we should not instantiate it directly. Get value. So I think I'm going to jump into the REPL to do some experimenting. Maybe we can use one of these things. I would argue, truthfully, it makes the code more convoluted than just removing the width. But I've never used one before. I'm a little curious to give it a try, and maybe my opinion will change once we actually see the code. So I'm going to go to the REPL. And I'm also going to find an image I can open, like... That should work. PyPortal startup. Actually, instead of the REPL, I'm going to use CodePy. And I am going to go back and rename this CodePy back to code UIOA simple test. I'll go make another CodePy. And I'm going to grab code from the Display IO Learn Guide. I happen to know there's code that shows a on this bitmap. We are using on this bitmap. There is image load, which is a different way to show BMP images. But that's not what this library uses, and so we're going to try to keep it to the same. Image load also stores the image in memory. Maybe we are losing the benefit of on-disk bitmap by trying to put it into one of these IO objects. Because as I understand it, on-disk bitmap means it doesn't get stored in memory. It's going directly from the disk to the screen. If we're reading it to an IO object, keeping it in memory, we're using more memory than just having the on-disk bitmap. I'm curious to try it though. Let's see what we see. I don't have purple, so I'm going to use PyPortal startup.bmp. And yeah, this should create. Oh. Right. So in the older versions of CircuitPython, we had to open the file. In the new version, we can give it a string. That's probably our solution. We just don't open the file anymore, and we just pass it the string. This works on CircuitPython 7, and we already have a stable release of 7. That's probably our actual solution. I'm going to try something, though. I am a little curious about the I.O. Like, I've never used them, so I'm curious to see if they work how I'm thinking. So I'm going to save this code. I'm going to go back to my REPL, Control-D to let it run. I'm going to go to the camera. We got an error because it's trying to open purple because I only saved this in one spot. Let's fix that. Save. Back to the camera. Okay, so that worked. We're showing our image. So if we do what? Let's say if we image IO done. We have bitmap file image IO equals bitmap file.read. And then we take all of these parts and move them outside the width. We read it from the file to the image IO, and then take it from the image IO and put it here. File must be a file opened in byte mode. Line 13. Is read. Maybe we're not supposed to be using read. Value. I'm gonna print some things, like what does it do if we print it's still gonna crash, but doesn't have the value. So this is a file IO, not a bytes IO. So can we get a bytes IO from a file IO? What is read getting for us? Okay. All the data. Must be a file opened in byte mode. So is this more like bytes IO? Like we would call the constructor. It takes a string, but it's a byte string in our case. We don't really need to print it. No, still the same problem. Once we try to pass it to the ondis bitmap, it wants it to be a file. Okay. Yeah, I'm not actually sure this could work either. We would have to like duplicate the file IO object. Hey Johnny, how's it going? And I don't know how you copy one of these. Like, open a file. Okay, this is what we call when we're calling open. I don't know how you duplicate one of these. We could make a new variable that points to the same one, but it would get closed whenever we leave with, I think, right? Like if we just said here image IO equals bitmap file, theoretically this would work now. We could pass image IO to this, but it's going to get closed because we're going to be outside the with statement. Line 17, we got an input output error. So if this was back inside now, like if we took all of this stuff, put it back inside the with, now this would work, I think. Yeah. But this is basically just a reference to the same object, which is getting closed whenever we leave the with block. So yeah, I don't know of a way that we can copy it into another variable and then use it after the with block, which even if we did have a way to do that, might defeat the purpose of ondis bitmap to begin with, truthfully. So we will, I think, go with the solution from CircuitPython 7, which is we can just pass it a string. We don't have to pass it the open object. So we have this stuff. we just give our string directly to onDisk bitmap. It handles opening it. Does it ever need to close? Because before we would have had to close the file eventually. So let's save this. That does appear to be working. I'm going to change the image just so we can see it load a different one as well. What do we have? Quote background. That'll work. I'm gonna duplicate this line. Okay, that worked as well. What I don't know though is if it does ever need to close, or is it, you know, I guess it must be handling closing by itself. How does it know when to close though? Just whenever the onDisk bitmap object gets garbage collected? Minimizes memory, be slower load times. Do a lot of programming with streams in C#. Really convenient. Code always looks the same regardless of if the data is in memory or a file. Yeah, I do kind of like the file IO thing. There was something I wanted to do with that in the core. I'm gonna blank on what it was right now though. Oh, I think it's in bitmap tools. Is there a load image or map tools? One of the functions in bitmap tools, we were trying to make it to where it could accept an open file stream, right? Like a file IO, like a thing that behaves like a file. It doesn't actually have to be a file, which would give us the ability to I think the idea was like loading an image that came from the internet without actually like downloading it to a permanent file. Just like download it to memory and load it onto the screen. Bitmap tools, load into maybe, or read into, I think it might be what it's called. So I do want to learn more about those at some point, especially inside the core. So it just says that it opens internally. It doesn't really talk about closing. So I think that means it's safe for us to just not care about it getting closed. If it's all happening inside the core, I think we just have to rely on the fact it's probably going to get closed whenever this object goes away. And we just don't worry about it, which is super nice. So really, for our PYOA, this actually gets a lot easier because here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all the code. I'm just going to copy paste this time instead of renaming. Copy all this back in. Save this. It's going to start. It's going to play its music. There it is. I don't know if it's actually coming through, but it's got a little startup sound effect. There's our home screen. We would have Adabot here if we could see images. I'm just going to do start, so it takes us to the next screen, which doesn't have continual audio. I'm just going to start going in here. Set background. Okay, this is where we're going to change it. We'll take out these comments too. because this is basically what we're changing as well, is this old CircuitPython 6 support. So we're not opening the file anymore. We don't need to close the file anymore. I don't think we need these. We're not going to have the with block. I'm going to tab this back. I'm going to comment this stuff out for now, just so I can easily switch back to it if I need to, but eventually we're going to delete all of this that's commented. So here we are going to open, we're going to pass the name of the file, which is just file name. I wonder if we want to keep it on self. Not sure if it matters. We create background, that's an on-disk bitmap, we give it the file name, it's going to create a TileGrid. This is what we just did, is pass the file name instead of the open object. Pixel shader, this changed also a little bit, so we can actually, I think what I'll do is just comment well here. Okay, and then we append the TileGrid to the group. Yeah, that seems like it should work. Let's save that. Oh, we need to look in the directory. Right, because this is not at the root. This is inside CYOA, which we actually had this code right here, right? This is what we actually need, right? Game directory / file name. I don't know if we need a leading slash. Try it this way. Nope, looks like we got it. Okay, so we actually have two. This is our splash screen. We get to see this one for a few seconds. Then we get to see Adabot. We go to help. We can see our background. Oh, it was actually blue, not green. But it's got the little circuit lines in there. What's up, buddy? Home. Start. Now we got our gray back with our little grid of pixels here. And our text is showing. And so everything seems to be working. Go yes, this gets us to yellow. Let's keep doing yes a couple of times here. That got us to the end. Go back home. We can start again. I assume if we do no, it takes us somewhere else. Yeah, start over. Yeah. Okay, so that's working. And that's a better fix. Let me go to help so this doesn't keep playing. That is a better fix than just going back to the old way and having to have the pylint ignore, basically. Because now we're up to date with the newest APIs for display I/O. Which means less code in this case. Less worrying about the file at all. We don't have to close it. We don't have to manage it at all. We just give it the path and it takes care of the rest. So let's save that. Let's make sure this is still working. Should be, because all I did is like delete white space and comments. Got our first image. Got our home screen. Got our backgrounds on these screens. Yeah, it's looking good. So I think it'd be nice if this screen was a little tiny bit easier to read personally. It's not the end of the world really, and it may be intentional again because it's kind of modeled after that old HyperCard interface. But it's a little hard to read. I think what I'll do though is maybe we have really two different things here. So fixing the images is one thing by itself. So I'm going to take the code we have, I'm going to put it back into the repo. I'm going to verify the parts that changed. Yeah, you can see we got rid of a lot of code by doing this, which is nice. We no longer close the file, we no longer open the file. Instead, we just pass the file name to onThisBitmap. Still create the tile grid. Our pixel shader is also less code because we don't have to do this get attribute thing to be backwards compatible. We add it to the group and that's it. We shed a bunch of our kind of fallback CircuitPython 6 stuff. And I'm just going to double check we don't have any other changes. Nope, look like it. So I'm not going to commit yet though. I want to make a branch for this. Git, let's look at our remotes. Git, so I'm going to need to add my own remote. I don't know if I've forked this already. Doesn't look like it. Add that. Git fetch. I don't know if we need to do that. Git checkout. New branch. Image fix. Maybe I'll call it background fix. Background fix. Hypercard. I think it may have been hard to read. I never actually did use it. Yeah, let me try to delete this stuff in the YouTube chat. Thanks for the heads up. Continually holding out hope that YouTube is gonna get better about blocking these automatically. Like, again, they are super duper clearly spam. There's really no reason why YouTube should have any problem whatsoever noticing that that's spam and removing it. Like, this is like the most lowest hanging fruit ever. But anyway, that's a YouTube problem, not a me problem for right now. Well, it's my problem because it shows up on my video, but it's not a problem for me to solve or complain about, I guess. So we made a branch. No, we didn't yet. Background fix from Adafruit main, no track. I spelled main wrong. Okay, now we got our branch. So here's where we're gonna make the commit. And I'm a double checker, so I'm just gonna, even though I already looked at this, I'm just gonna check again, make sure there's no changes aside from that one we made here. Fix backgrounds and remove CP6 compatibility. You don't want to go to the samurai. Instead, we're gonna go to my branch, foamyguy. Background fix, push. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Johnny. All right. So we can make a PR. This made an issue for it as well, so that's our issue number 28. Resolves that. Kind of lay out the choices we had, I think, which are remove with context and add a exception for pylint, or this could be numbered maybe. I don't know if it matters. since we do have a 7 stable release now, and since it does not require, you know what I didn't do is run pre-commit. This might fail actions. We do have a stable release for 7, and since doing it this way doesn't require the pylint exception, I'm gonna run pre-commit. Oh, wow, okay, we actually didn't have any anything. Let's try docs too. This is something to do with I don't think this is gonna fail in the actions. I think this is something about how I have Blinka or something I was I don't think I did any of this. If Sphinx. Maybe this is making it pass? I'm not sure why it's failing for me here, but I don't think it's going to fail in actions. We could actually maybe see... Oh, I can't click it from here. Oh, doesn't run. It's forked. Okay, we can't see it until we make the PR. I feel sometimes when I have forks and I push to them, they run the actions, but sometimes they don't. And I don't feel like I understand when or why ones do. Oh, I should have also put this. Let's copy boot out. All right, we'll see if that passes. In playing with it a little more, I think it'd be cool if we could have inside of here, what if we could just have, we already have text color. What if we could just have text background color? Right, so right now this won't do anything because it's not looking, well, I assume it's not looking for that. You could check, maybe there's some chance it was there already. I think this would be a good way to solve the fact that that second screen is a little hard to read though. Yeah, no, it doesn't do anything. So if we added that in our JSON, we could read it out of the JSON and then we could just put a background color on this label. So what actually happens? Let's step through this. We call display card. Inside display card, data plaque, display buttons, display background, display text. Display text for card. Text equals card.getText. Text color equals this. Text background color equals card.getText background color defaults to none. Okay, so set text, this is gonna call set text, which we're gonna have to pass this along to. Background color, because we need to, basically we need to use a property on the label. So this will be background color. Value error. I don't think we want black by default though. We want none by default. Okay. Now we're passing this into set text. Color. Background color. We're adding this. Okay. Okay. Wrapping, wrap nicely. Oh, this is calling self. This is calling. Oh, we could get rid of this. This is inside label now. We don't need to have it inside this library. That's another thing for another time though. We're back to set text. Oh, this is creating a new label every time. That's probably leftover, I guess, though, because you used to not be able to increase the number of characters. I think we just do something like this. If background color self.text background color background color. That's all there is to it. Nope. Fade to black. Takes 4 positional arguments, but 3 were given. Changed fade to black, did we? Let's trace through this. Line 305 first. Fade to black. We didn't pass any arguments. It says self 193. That text gets called here. Pass that third one to none. Or maybe we should do. We should not do that. Maybe we should go this. Yeah. And we don't have to change the other usages of it. There we go. Now it has background color behind it. And it's optional. You don't have to use it if you don't want to. But you can. And on a screen like this, it makes your text easier to read. I think that's a pretty good solution for making that text easier. This did pass. If anybody is watching and interested in reviewing and has a PyPortal, or you could probably test this maybe on a PyGamer if you want to do a little bit more tinkering. But if anybody is watching and wants to review, it would be really nice to get this one reviewed, and then we could get it merged, because it is broken right now. It doesn't work how it's intended. Really looks as bad as it, yeah. Python librarians, we'll do that. And yeah, so for this one, I think what I'll do is let's start another new branch. I think we need to do this. Git checkout, another new branch. Let's call this one text background color. Also, I'm gonna click through a few more actually before I hit this. Let's just make sure there's nothing else messed up here. Yeah, see, we do have a problem here. Convert none to int. So we need to probably just check for a none somewhere. 238. Oh, it's not a value error. Interesting. I guess we want to do both. Stay none, I think, but okay. Start. This one looks good. There we go. Now our other ones are still fine. I don't know if that last screen there is supposed to have anything on it. This one does have text and it's start over. Nice music. Yeah, it looks like this one just doesn't have text. This must be the purple. Yep. And that's our song. Repeat the sound. Now, if I saved something, it just restarted back to the beginning. I bet you PyCharm must have written something. Okay. That seems like it's working fine. So I'm going to make a new branch in here. I'm going to go to help, so this will stop playing. Text background color from Adafruit main. No track. And oh, there's another example for cave. So here I'm going to basically take the code that we added. The thing is, though, you don't want to just copy paste everything, because you do want this to be a different PR from the other one. We need to get just the text stuff that we changed, basically. It's like this. Add display text for. this. This. Side of here. There we go. If we have the color, set it. And that was it. On that, the one other change which I would make in the PR would be on that one screen in the JSON. We could use it to show how it works. Hey, Keith. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. I hope you're having a nice day as well. Ease, okay. Yeah, so this would be the only change we make, I think. What I will do is I'll try to test this as best I can. It's going to go back to the image is not working, so it'll be a little tough to test, but we'll be able to see if our color is working, I think. It's the main thing we're after with this. So I'm gonna rename, actually I have the changed one already, I guess, right? I think I want this one even separate. Actually, I'll put this, oh yeah, I'll put this here. Edited. Then I'm gonna delete this one because it has the same changes from before. And now we can paste in the one we just made, which does not have the image fix, but does have background color. Okay, so this is our startup page. We would be seeing Blinka here if we could show images, but we can't. We would be seeing Adabot here on our home screen. We go start. There it is. That's our background color. So we're looking good there. So I think this PR is good to go as well. I'll run pre-commit. Let's do that. It'll be in the right directory. Pre-commit, run a... Oh, it's a good thing we did it. We got black this time. Some format. I'm going to run it again just to make sure it doesn't do anything else. Shouldn't, but only takes a second. All right, let's do this and double check the changes. So be a couple. We have we got rid of these to-dos in our other branch. We had if we have a background, this is inside set text, I think. Yep. If we have a background color, then set the background color on our label. We could be using bitmap label to save a little memory, but I won't bother with that change right now. Set text, background color defaults to none. Up here inside of display text 4, we try to get the text background color from our object that came from our JSON. We try to parse it as an int, hexint in this case. If it was not a valid integer, we just set it to none. If it was already none, then we just keep it on none. All set text, we pass in the background color parameter as text background color. Looks good to me. Okay, and then the only other changes in the JSON, we added text background color to this one card that was kind of hard to see. Support text background color cards. Maybe we'll call it optional. optional. Okay, we want to go to foamyguy, text background color, push. One thing I'll do maybe is get some pictures. Totally spelled wrong. Specified is what this is trying to be. I think what I'll do is let's get it with the images working. Actually, you know, one thing is we should maybe get some pictures for the other PR also. Do that. I'm gonna go no. I'm gonna go start over. This is the home screen, so I'm gonna screenshot this. Should restart. Maybe. Oh, I think it's a long wave file. Yeah. A long wave file. That's why it took it extra time to restart. We'll go to the home screen again. Copy this and save it. Can I just have that one? Sort of. Let's take this back out. I wish you could comment inside JSON. Get some cat hairs. Okay. That was interesting. All right. Well, that's a bummer. Rolled all the way there, and then it moved me all the way back. Oh no. Why though? I just did this the other day. I just did this and it worked. And it worked now. I swear I just did this. Weird. All right, it's good. Go back and add one too. Gonna work this time. That's so weird. I'm like 99.9% sure I just did this exact same thing with copy paste and it was working yesterday. Go fixed version. Okay. Wait for this one to pass actions and then I'll request a review on it also. And I think that is good for the PYOA library. Those are the main two things I wanted to do today. Mostly get the images fixed, which we got pretty easily done. But I figured we might be able to do this part pretty easily as well to make this one more legible. So I'm happy that that came out and not really that difficult. Next thing I'm going to do is going a little bit deeper level. This was all library level stuff with CircuitPython code. All the code is written in Python. Next, I'm diving into the core, which is C code, which I am way less familiar with, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit. One thing I am doing this week is I am trying out CLion. So I usually use PyCharm. That's what I've been using as the editor for the rest of this video. But I have CLion, which is the editor made by the same company, JetBrains, as PyCharm, but it's their editor for C and C++. So I'm going to give this a try to see if it makes it easier to do stuff inside the core. This is really my first time using it. The only thing I've done with it so far is install it and open up the CircuitPython project. I haven't done anything else with it yet. So this is kind of like my first experience with CLion, if anybody finds that interesting. And first thing I'm going to do is go to main and update it. Keep an eye on that. When it passes, I'll request a review. I wonder if I... Oh, okay, we're done. Oh, we're almost done. We're done fetching. Now we're on to updating. Yeah, see you, Keith. Yeah, for sure. Check it out whenever you get a chance. And you too. Hope you have a nice day. It's taking a while to update. It's like doesn't really show me very much information about the task. I know there was a fix recently. Well, there was a change like that added the Broadcom port, and it made a new submodule for the Raspberry Pi repo, which was big or something, and then they changed the way that you fetch submodules. I wonder if I have the or if I'm having the old one of that's trying to fetch apply content IDF. It's a directory. Okay. I don't know what to do about that, so like my rollback applied. No, just want to be in the up-to-date state. Go cancel. We got 113 files and 102 commits because we skipped 4 repositories. So I think the new way to do this is make fetch submodule module. I think this will update all the submodules, including somehow skipping the massive Raspberry Pi one. Most of these are not changing. A couple of them are. Okay. I'm gonna pull again. I mean, it shouldn't do anything this time. Hopefully it'll take much less time than last time too. See if it gives me that same pop-up about IDF and stage, I think it said was the other one. I could always like reclone if I need to get a like most up-to-date fresh copy. Hoping this will just get me to the right spot though. It's taking a while to update again, so I guess it is probably going to pop up those things. It's probably like trying to do that and eventually going to realize that it can't actually succeed. And then I guess that's probably when it pops up that rollback thing. All files up to date. No, we didn't get that thing this time. Okay. And it says all files up to date. If that can be trusted, then we should be good. Let's see. All right. So what I want to do is, well, we should make a branch first, right? Because we don't want to really ultimately be working on main. Let's make sure we have a remote. I should have a remote. Yeah. Git, check out the TileGrid size props from Adafruit main, no track. Okay, so I want to add width and height properties to the TileGrid. Okay, this one did pass. Go. Let's review. What's this? Okay. Perfect. So in display.io, we have TileGrid. TileGrid is a thing that holds stuff that goes on the screen. Usually it holds a bitmap. There are widgets that extend TileGrid, so they maybe hold their own bitmap and they manipulate what it looks like. Label has a tile map internally. Like pretty much anything you want to show on the screen has a tile map somewhere in the stack of objects. When you create the TileGrid, you give it all these parameters: the bitmap, the pixel shader, which is like the palette. You give it the width and height, which is in tiles. So, You know, like I was working on that Pac-Man game last week. I have like, I think 16 by 16 tiles. So that's the height and width in tiles of my tile grid in that game. We have a tile height and a tile width, which is in pixels. So in that game, each of my tiles is 15 pixels by 15 pixels. You multiply 15 times 16 to get the full size of the actual screen. We have a default tile. We have an XY, which is this location on the screen. We pass all these things when we construct the tile grid. But these ones down here are what we have for properties. So these are all the things we can do with the tile grid after we instantiate it. We can make it hidden, true or false. We can change its X and Y positions to move it around the screen. We can flip X or flip Y, which I think like mirrors it, kind of like if you were turning it over. That makes any sense? Transpose XY can be used for rotating, basically. You could flip and transpose in order to get a 90-degree rotation. You can change the pixel shader, so put a new palette on it. You can access the individual tiles to get their index of what tile index they have. And you can set the individual tiles to whatever tile index you want as well. So what we don't have here is like width or height. You can't get the width or the height or change the width or the height. You could store it in separate variables because you had to pass it when you created it. So you could create a variable and you could store it alongside the tile grid. But I think it'd be nice if the tile grid had at least like getter properties that would get you the width and the height. That would make it easier to center the tile grid into the center of something. Like if you want it in the middle of your display or the middle of a cell in a table or something like that. Being able to access the width and height would make it easier to do that. So I'm going to try to add that. And again, I am pretty green as far as actually working inside the core, so it may be a bit of a bumpy ride. I know we need to declare this in shared bindings and then actually implement it in shared module. So I'm just going to look in shared bindings first. It is interesting we have get width and get height here. It's almost like this started happening, but doesn't actually exist. Because if I go here, pixels. These. This is basically a simple test, so I'm going to override it. I think that's fine. I think I have a copy down here anyway, so this looks up the display, creates a bitmap, creates a palette, sets some colors, creates a tile grid. If we wanted it to go on, it would also create a group, pin the tile grid to the group, show the group on the display, update some pixels inside the bitmap so that those get drawn on the screen. But I don't think we actually care about the rest of that right now. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to print tile grid. I'm also going to print tilegrid.width. See if that does anything. It doesn't find it for sure. Has no object width. So these are the things it has. Flip XY, hidden, pixel shader, transpose, and then actual X and Y, which matches what we see in the docs. It's different order, but they're the same properties. Also get item and set item, which aren't listed here, but do exist. So it is interesting that we have these. We do this trick in C-line. Ooh, that's a bummer. That was one thing I was hoping would work. In PyCharm, these line numbers get like linkified. I can just click them and it takes me to there. So inside shared bindings, inside tilegrid.h, that's where we're looking right now. These are declared here. These are also in tilegrid.c. This is in subscript, which is the function that's handling get item and set item. It's just getting the width and getting x and y variables based on the width. So this must be, again, in tiles. This is the width in tiles, not pixels. If it is a small int, we do this. If it's not a small int, items. So I think this would handle if you only have a single thing in here. And then this would handle if you have two, like this one. Get array fixed in, yeah, items, 2 items, we're getting them out of that, what is, I guess, an array. We get an int for each one, and we store those in x and y. Okay, makes sense. If x is greater than or equal to width, or y is greater than or equal to height, raise tile index is out of bounds. So these must work, right? Because this will raise if you do specify a number that's too big. So these actually probably work. We just need to hook them up to properties, I think. So we're not giving a width and a height, though. So what is our width and height actually being in this case? Got a 0. Can we read 1? I'll index out of bounds. Okay. Does it show a default in here? It does not. I assume those are probably defaulting to 1, though. Since we were able to fetch index 0, but not index 1. And this got raised by this piece of code, which means these must be working to figure out the height and width. So really I think all we need to do is just try to make new properties. It is weird that these exist here but don't get exposed as properties. This is where a bunch of the properties are at. Pretty similar to X and Y. I think I'm going to copy the code for one of X or Y and then just change it to be width. I'm going to copy all of this. Just put it here. Basically going to go through and change the parts we need. So I'll do width first. Width, it's an int. Width of the tile grid in tiles. Tile grid object get Y. So width. I don't know if that exists or if that's something we need to create. These should be indented. I don't know why we lost our. Oh, let me try Alt L. Ooh. No, that did not get better. It in fact got worse. So undo. Not super impressed so far with C-Line. Doesn't. Code format's not quite what I had hoped for. Doesn't seem to be able to find functions and things like control clicking. It turns this to a link and I click it, but it just says it can't find it. No usages. This, I think we would do get width. So I don't think we really want to have setters. Maybe if we make the getters work, then eventually we could have setters, but I'm going to start with just getters, which it looks like this block of code is here. This is indented. This is the block of code. So I think I'm going to go comment this out, and we're just not going to have setters. Really what I want it for is to move things to the center. I just need to get the width. I don't necessarily need to set it. And I imagine setting it requires some more like in-depth stuff to happen, basically. Okay, this looks like it's declaring the set Y function, I guess, for CircuitPython. So let's actually move that one more. Project property, TileGrid width. Base type is a property. Proxy. Get width. Width from none, and then that gets us to the end. I assume this will just not build, probably. Let's see if trying to build tells us the next thing we need to do, though. It is going to build. Oh, this is still returning Y. But if it does build and we load it on the PyPortal and we call .width and we get back our Y value, then we're on the right path. I'm thinking it might actually build. Usually fail. Oh no, I jinxed it. Usually fails quicker. Gonna fail. Undeclared here, not a function. Maybe. display.io TileGrid get width object. Yeah, so like I was saying before, I don't think we want to do sets. So here, I guess we just remove this one. It'll build faster this time because it has some stuff cached. Maybe not, since it didn't succeed. I don't know. I think I can do J, maybe? J to use more processor cores or something, make it go faster. We've done that. Figure it out though. I'm just happy this computer builds a lot faster than the other one. I was working on a Windows computer before, and I built inside a virtual machine. Took like 2 or 3 minutes to build. This one I can usually do in under a minute. This one did take just over, but it goes pretty quick. Okay, so that actually did build. So did we add a width property? Now it is not going to return the actual width, right? Because this still says returning from get y. But if we have the property and it exists, then that's a good step in the right direction. So let's go to bootloader. Got our portal boot. And I'm going to go, we're going to make a new terminal. Portal, CP firmware, UF2, media, portal boot, copy. This will load my firmware. So it comes back as CircuitPy. And go back to our code, and now we can try. Also, it should crash. Yeah, it did crash actually. It just crashed before Theo got connected. So now we can try. Well, I guess let's try just dir and see if width shows up in the dir now. To restart. No, it still doesn't show up here. About if we access it. Nope. Okay. I think we have more stuff to set up. One thing is we can fix this part to be width, which was function we were using before, that we saw before here. And how display.io TileGrid get width, yeah. So we know this part exists. This stuff is all for set. Property. See. Get width. DROM none. And this is already declared inside TileGrid H. Do we need to include it or something? Doesn't look like there's any other includes for TileGrid.h. This is our constructor. is our hidden Boolean X, Y. This is the one we added for width. I think there's like a list of these things get added somewhere else down here. Oops. Yeah. This. Oops. Let's do this. String width. TileGrid width. Yeah. Okay. Let's try build that. Should try that processor's trick thing. Is it J? I don't know. This is not. Yeah, we're not using npm though. No. I don't know how to find stuff about make. There's too many things called make. I don't know what the actual, like, it has a more specific name. Jobs specifies the number of jobs. There's more than one J option. Last one is effective. If the J option is given without an argument, make will not limit the number of jobs. We'll try that next time. Goes any faster. While this is building, I'm gonna go back to bootloader mode. We'll click reset. Put up as portal boot. I don't know if this is actually like declared anywhere. Build. Copy that to portal boot. And we'll check back in on our code, and it's maybe still gonna crash. I guess if our width starts existing, then it won't crash, but oh, yeah, and actually needs to reload. We're still printing the dir, and we're printing the width, and I'm gonna run it, and now it worked. So we see width here, and we also got 1. So if we did here width equals 2, I think 1 is the default. Will this show 2 now? It does. Okay. Sweet. Okay, so we need to make still a few more things. We need to make the height one, and we need to make one. We need to be able to get the pixels also, because ultimately I need to know the size in pixels, which are the things that we pass. We pass in the height and width in tiles, and then we pass in the tile height and the tile width. And so that's basically what we would be multiplying our width and height by in order to get the size in pixels. So let's make a height. I'm gonna copy my, I'm gonna actually delete, and it won't let me set, right? Let's make sure it's not gonna let me set. If I do print the width, if I do TileGrid.width equals or did not let me. Yeah, sort of. I mean, it has a width, but you can't set it, so maybe there's a better error. Maybe there's a more specific error, but not allowing it, which is the good thing. I'm gonna delete this stuff. And then define a height. Oh, called it height and then typed width. Okay. Oh, and then down here. Okay. Now we should be able to check the height also. See if J changes this any. Took us 1 minute 42 last time. It's fairly slow. But I am streaming and listening to music and a ton of things open and stuff. So like, computer is doing kind of a lot right now. See if this gets faster. I'm gonna run to the restroom really fast though while it's building, and I'll be right back. Okay, 48 seconds. So it was faster, but it was about the same as 2 builds ago. So I don't know if the J actually made it faster, or if we're just getting lucky or whatever. But it did build. I'm gonna go back to bootloader, copy this. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the code. It's gonna crash because we can't do this. We want to make sure that height shows up in here. We also want to go print TileGrid.height. Okay. We do have a height. I did get 2. I was expecting 1. Maybe I copy pasted? Yeah. This is... should be height. Height here. Height here. We have height here. Height. Height. Now we have height here. So I think that one probably was still returning width. If we double it to 8, do we go any faster? Let's go back to bootloader mode. That one definitely went faster. 26 seconds. Copy. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was expecting. So we got 2 for width because we passed 2, but we have 1 for height because 1 is the default. But if we went height equals 3, now we get 2 and 3. So those do seem to be working. So now we just need to give tile width and tile height also. Which that one might be harder because it might not just exist already. Let's look in the constructor and see what happens with them inside the constructor. So this is make new. Tile width and tile height get passed here. Oh, interesting. So this has the different things that can go into a tile grid here. Shape is one object that uses tile grid. Bitmap is one. On disk bitmap is another one. So this is creating a variable tile width, setting it equal to what we got from the arguments. If tile width is 0, which is the default, then we just set it to the entire bitmap width. Same thing for height. So where does get used? It doesn't divide, we raise an error. Call the constructor. So interesting. This is actually dividing back out to get the width and height in tiles. It's taking the full bitmap size divided by the tile width in order to get the width in the number of tiles. Even though we did have it passed to us. That's all that happens to it. It calls construct. I can't go inside of this. I would like to. Is this declared? The signature is declared here. This is just calling it 131. That's where we're already at. It's actually in shared module. It's interesting we didn't have to change anything in shared module for height and width. Not sure if we did. We should have had to do that or not. It's here. So there's fill area, refresh areas. By parent. This looks like constructor probably. Yeah, we do have this thing, struct. This does have these and these. Maybe we can fetch them off of this object. That's all that's in this file. This doesn't have like X, Y, or flip X and Y, all of those things. They exist here. They're not declared as functions here. Constructor, get hidden, set hidden. Yeah, I wonder, we should probably have... Well, maybe these are declared here already? Transform, get X, set X, get Y. Oh, these are declared here already. Okay, that's why we didn't have to do anything in shared module. So these did kind of exist already. They just weren't all the way hooked up as properties that CircuitPython could use. So we will have to make new functions in here for tile width and tile height. Yeah. So let's go look at our width and height from here. And this is width and tiles. I think maps up to that stuff in this, right? Width. Width and tiles, yeah. So we should be able to get self tile width and self tile height. Same way that it got width and tiles. I'm gonna make 2 more of these. Tile width. Tile height. Okay. Be all we need in shared module, I think. Come back to here. Create 2 of these. Okay. Then into here, we need 2 more sections like the ones we made. This was our width. I'm gonna put these one after height. Tile width. Width of a single tile in pixels. Tile. width, width, width. Okay. Will it build, or does it want me to include the second one also? How far can we do this also? Six seconds last time. Six seconds, same. So that doesn't make a difference between 8 and 16, or at least it didn't this time. Let's go back to bootloader. Copy this. Here. And so this time, tile width defaults to the bitmap size because we didn't pass it, and it starts on default to 0. And if it was, we saw that logic earlier, if it is 0, then it changes itself to the width and height of the bitmap, which in this case are actually the display size. So if tile width exists, it's going to give us back the display size, I think. Everything is working. Oh, you know what? We didn't put it at the bottom. We created one, but we need to go down here on this thing and actually add it here. Tile width. Tile width. Maybe this is why it's able to build even though we didn't do the tile height one, is because this is not trying to reference it. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but that's my guess. Because we did add tile height here, and we added it in shared module also. But I guess because nothing else is using it, doesn't matter that it's actually not defined. I guess I'll just go back to 8. It seemed like 8 and 16 are pretty much the same, but they were both definitely faster than not using that at all. That's nice. Although this time was slower, 49 seconds. Back to bootloader. Copy. Here. Didn't actually add it yet, but we have tile width here now, so that's good. I'm going to turn these off. Print TileGrid tile width. PyCharm doesn't know this exists because it's not in the stubs yet. Boom. That's correct. So our screen is 320 by 240. We know our tile width is defaulting to the entire bitmap. Bitmap is the same size as the screen. The tile width is 320 in this case, and that's correct. So I'm going to implement height also, and then we'll go get a different example that actually changes the tile width and tile height so it's not the full size of the bitmap. That way we can make sure that works as well. We are close though. This is going pretty well. Tile height. Width. So this will be height. Height of the single tile in pixels. Change all of these. height. Right in here. Wish I could like double click. There's like double click will highlight things for you, but it doesn't know to stop on the understore. Hyphens it will stop. New spammer. Hey, thanks for the heads up, Johnny. I appreciate it. Let's go back there real quick, and yeah, sure is a couple of them here. Add user. Takes it a couple of seconds to in fact, I'm gonna actually do this one also. This is some kind of link spam. We don't need this. Okay. Yeah, thanks for the heads up. Pause this, but I'll keep the tab open. That way I can try to check back in on it after a while. All right. So let's see. We did tile height, tile height, tile height, tile height. It looks like we're done here. We do need to do it down at the bottom though. In that big section that's like actually mapping all these functions to things visible in CircuitPython. That's my understanding at least. Because as soon as we added them to here, that's when they started showing up in dir. Like when we did print dir TileGrid. So I think that's all we need. I'm going to save this. I'm going to start the build. Go back to 8. Doesn't seem like it makes a difference between 8 and 16. I'm going to go to bootloader mode. Once that is built, we will copy it again. This whole like build and then bootloader and then copy, this whole thing gives me like even more appreciation for how quick and easy the CircuitPython layer is for iterating. Like being able to just open CodePy and make a change and save it and it runs is like so incredibly nice. I mean, this is work that has to get done in order for all of that to happen. So I have appreciation for this work as well. But yeah, it really does put into perspective like just how nice the iteration cycle on CircuitPython is. Like comparing it to this is like night and day. So we'll copy this. Should make like a, maybe I can make a Twitch chat game or something. We can play a game while it's building or something. All right, so this built, we'll go back to here. We'll print tile height also. Save that. It is not auto-loading right now. I think it's because it finished the code. I think maybe if we had like a while true here, actually auto-reload better. So there's our height, 240. That did work. We have tile height here now as well. So now we can get the height and the width of our tiles in pixels. We can get the number of pixels in the tile grid, excuse me, the number of tiles in the tile grid. This should allow us to know the full height and width of the tile grid. In this case, it happens to be the same as the bitmap. But there could be cases where it's different, like if you're using a sprite sheet. So that's what I'm going to do next, actually, is I'm going to go back to here, multiple tile grids. This is the example that uses a sprite sheet. We're going to copy this. We're going to put this on our device. I'll just erase that stuff. It's all basically just test code anyway. Save this. I'm going to let it run. Okay, we don't have Castle Sprite Sheet. Let's download that. Maybe it's in Project Bundle. Nope. We should check this file into the repo so that it's included with that bundle. It wouldn't show up in the screenshot either because of that. Let this run. Oh, no castle sprite sheet? No, this one's running. Not like crashed. Not doing anything. Looking at the root. We have this now. Did we break TileGrid? Our other example was not actually drawing anything. Maybe we actually broke something. Yeah. Showing. So just stepping through the code real quick, we'll use image load to load castle sprite sheet. .bmp. We create a tile grid for the sprite, which is Blinka. We create a tile grid for the castle, which is the background basically with all the tiles. Blinka is 1 by 1, 16 by 16. Castle is 6 by 5, 16 by 16. Create a group for the sprite, add the sprite to it, create a group for the castle, scale to 3, add the castle to it, create a top level group, add the castle and the sprite groups to the top level group, set the corners to specific tiles, set the top and bottom walls to specific tiles, set the left and right walls to specific tiles, set the floor to a specific tile in the center of the walls. Put the sprite at this location, show the group. One thing I noticed is my display stopped updating. Here I have CircuitPy output : but on the screen we don't see that. Which kind of makes sense because as soon as we call display show, it would take over from terminal IO, which is what's showing the serial stuff. I'm gonna save this. Not really sure if it did restart. So it got to both of those and printed them fine. So let's go back to a stock PyPortal build. See if we broke it by adding that stuff. Interesting, it doesn't crash. Do 7.0 first, and then I'll do 7.1 beta 2. Back to bootloader. Yeah, it looks like we broke something. 7.10 works fine. Back to bootloader. I've broken with her. Double check 710. I guess I should have been drawing stuff. Oh. We didn't break it. Did we not break it? It's just broken? 710 beta 2. And this is not dirty, so this is not my build. I downloaded this from CircuitPython.org. We have basically unmodified learn guide. And it doesn't work. Plot thickens. Let's go here. So let's try beta 1. Back to bootloader. 700 release works. Seven one zero beta 2 does not. Now we're going to try 710 beta 1. This one does. So somewhere between 710 beta 1 and 710 beta 2 TileGrids got broken. What else? I mean, this would break almost everything though, right? Wouldn't we? Go here. Let's try this. So let's go back to bootloader and back to the broken one. Taking a bit of a detour here. End up with a bunch of these open because it opens new ones every time. Beta 2 is the broken one. Plus my builds, because they're building from main. That one doesn't work. So now let's go here. Let's go here. This code, multiple tile grids. Code. Now let's do this. Basic showing a bitmap, but we don't have purple, so we'll use, let's get purple actually. Let's keep it exactly the same. But one thing is, since our, so like part of the system thinks display IO took over, because we're not seeing any new prints, but obviously part of the system does not realize that display IO took over. It's not showing our image. I'm gonna reset. Yeah. Okay, so there's actually going to be a lot of things broken. Pretty much anything that uses TileGrid, which is pretty much anything that you can show on the screen. Even like display text, simple test? This even would not work, I don't think. Yeah. Still not seeing it update here, but it's because we called display.show. We said import board display.show none. It would go back to the terminal. Nope. Okay, well, let's make an issue. Make sure there's not one already. So print exception is not to do with this. Raspberry Pi B4 is not to do with this. NeoPixel, this is what Scott was working on yesterday. This is from 2 days ago. Yeah, nothing within the last few days is about TileGrid. Oh, that's a different Discord channel. There's a virtual concert today. I'm gonna be watching later. They have a Discord for the band. They set up a Discord specifically for folks who are watching the concert thing later. Okay, but we don't need that right now. So let's do this. New issue, bug report. Oh, well, is it specific to TileGrid? Do we have a way? We don't really have a way. Are there things you can show without a TileGrid? I guess vector IO? Is that right? Not right, is it? No, okay, yeah, this works without a, this doesn't get a TileGrid. Let's see if this works. We'll need to do some things here because this is not a complete example. Import display IO, import vector IO, whoops. And display. Create the group, create the palette, create a circle, add it to the group, create a rectangle, add it to the group, create a polygon, add it to the group, display.show the group while true pass. We're still in REPL right now, so nothing would have happened. Let it run and nothing happens. I'm gonna let it run from a cold boot up though. Let's press reset. No, don't get anything. And just to double check again, I'm going to go back to bootloader and load beta 1, and this will draw shapes. Yes. Okay. So it's not just TileGrid. Vector.io doesn't use TileGrid, and that is also not working. So we'll say display.io not drawing on screen in 7.1.0 beta 2. So now we need to go, well, let's copy this one too. So we're going to say they work fine on this one. They do not work on the other one. So back to bootloader again. Beta 2. One guide gone. Prints to serial do not get shown. Okay. This thing makes it hard to preview the whole like issue, but we preview each of these individually. Only display IO. Does this get a 7x or whatever? Does that exist in here? Not in here. Breaks API. Doesn't really break the API. Breaks the functionality. If I tried a cold restart, I did with the reset button. I have not tried power off and power back on. I certainly can. Nothing. So in this case, I think it runs CodePy fast enough that we never see any of the serial. Oh, interesting. If we control C once, we do get this print stuff, but we can't see the REPL. Like if I run a new thing, you don't see it. That's weird. But then control D does not overtake it back to just blank. So the first time you break out of CodePy, it shows you the exception and it prints the normal stuff, but nothing else prints. And then from that point on, no matter what you do to it, it seems like we're stuck here. This will never update. Printing in the REPL here doesn't update it. Rerunning CodePy doesn't change it, doesn't go to blank or anything. So cold boot gets you back to blank because CodePy tries to run. First Control C shows you this, and then you're stuck at that point. No matter what else you do from there, this is the only thing you see until you cold boot again. That starts the process over again. And if we don't have this stuff in CodePy, CodePy doesn't try to use the display. Still don't see that, but if we cold boot from here, then I bet we can still use the REPL and see it. but maybe not. Let's see. Code done running because there's nothing in it. Why though? No. Okay. So this is actually, it's also affecting terminal IO that's printing from the REPL. Code. See, now my copy paste works. Maybe it's because it wasn't a file before? Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that, Dexter. You appear normally in the serial communication channel. So this seems to... I always second guess affect versus effect. Seems to affect? Effect? I don't know. The truth is I don't know the right way. Seems to affect only display output. Actual serial communication does appear to be working. 3.5 featherwing. Yeah. I've noticed the featherwings are a little touchy sometimes too. I ended up, like with featherwings, I found there's like a way to put a time.sleep in the initialization before some stuff happens, and it seemed to make it a lot more reliable when I was messing with those more, like the TouchStack project. Okay. This is probably a good start. Let's do that. Oh, this gets weirdly formatted. It put all of this inside of a code block. That makes this look weird, kind of. And then this got put back into a code block. It's like it reverse code blocked me. I put this into a code block, but because it tried to make its own, it took this out and it put everything else in. Gotta remember, I guess, not to code block stuff. Goes into those things. So this is all like one giant code block already. I don't know, this makes it hard to read and stuff too. I want to go back and take the things out of code block that are not really code. Can't make this any bigger. Oh, yeah, we can. We just got to get the exact right spot. I don't know where the closing triple ticks was. Guess there were no closing triple ticks? That's interesting. We could put this back now. Actually, do kind of want this one. None of this matters that much, truthfully. Right, this is nitpicking about the specific way it appears in the issue. It's really not that big a deal. Okay. So I don't have too much time left. I'm probably gonna wrap it up pretty soon. Let's take a peek at some recently closed PRs. Enable display. This is in ESP in PWM out. This doesn't seem like it would have affected us. Let's maybe, I think maybe the last thing I'll do is I'll try to find the specific one it breaks on. So we know it works on 710 beta 1. We know it fails on 710 beta 2. Let's try to find the last one that it worked on. And I'm not actually sure how the alpha goes into this, so I think I'm going to skip that for now. So let's try this one before the alpha. And let's put my CodePy back. Right now I just have the Vectorio stuff, which is fine. Save that. Go to bootloader mode. This is the first one right before Alpha 720. And this one does have that problem. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's good. That actually narrows it down quite a bit. So now we know we're between 710 beta 1 and this one right here. So we only have a few in here to test. So let's just jump like halfway back. 8CF. Bootloader mode. HCF. Paste. Move new spam. Oh, does it not show me if I'm paused? I don't see any, but I had it paused. Doesn't let me scroll. The rest of the page is just gone. Oh. Yeah, I really need to figure out how to turn chat on YouTube off, honestly. I always tell people Discord and Twitch are the way to get a hold of me. If you want to ask questions or talk about anything while I'm streaming. And therefore, like, we rarely ever get legitimate chats in YouTube, and we get a lot of non-legitimate chats in YouTube. So that's going to be my homework. Hopefully by next week, I can figure out how to just disable it so that I will not have to worry about that anymore. Okay, so this one does have that problem. Still. That was here. Oh, let's jump another 2 to 932. Bootloader mode. I'm sure you can just disable chat, right? You must be able to just do that. And I did notice it doesn't show me, it doesn't keep my chat caught up if I'm paused, which I was paused before, so that my computer was not running yet another preview of the stream that I am currently streaming. So I already have the preview running on Twitch, and technically it's running in OBS, I think, or maybe it's paused, I don't know, but I don't really want to be running like 4 copies of the stream at once. I haven't seen that kind of spam in the live streams that you're the moderator of. Could mod me. Yeah, I'm definitely willing to do that. I don't know how to do that, so that's another thing I would need to figure out. But I am definitely willing to get some mods, especially like, especially if we can't just disable it. I probably would lean towards just disabling it, but if we can't, then definitely should get some mods. So this one connected and put blank on the screen. Oh, no. We're in Portal Boot right now. Yeah. We're downloading this 932. We have it. Never done any live streams. Yeah, I'll try to figure that out as well. How to make mods on YouTube. That one worked. So 932 worked and 8CF failed. So we have 2 in between. So let's try 39C and FEA. Do 39C first. 39C. Oh, I didn't get bootloader mode. Okay, 39C. C looks like it works. Yeah. Okay, bootloader. FEA. Oh no. It's working correctly on the Pi badge? Like you have no problems? And it runs fine for you? You see stuff on the screen and your REPL is updating and stuff like that? This one worked also. Auto reload isn't working. Auto reload isn't working? What does that mean? Like you ran let's start with which example did you run? Like the bitmap example, or I guess you're probably running your own, you're probably running the bubbles maybe? Hello, this one does work. These were the last two. We're currently on FEA. And it's working. FEA. So 8CF is the first one that's broken. I'm gonna copy this. Okay, I was seeing that too. And I was assuming that it was because I didn't have a while true loop, and I thought my CodePy might be finishing, and then it's just not watching anymore. So maybe I misappropriated that, thinking that was part, like, unrelated to this, and it may still be unrelated, but it might be a different problem that's also occurring. So this was the last one that worked. Man, that's weird though. I'm usually, usually you would always be happy that things are working, but I am a little bummed that it is working on the Pi badge, because that uses a SAMD51 also, which means that, like, this is not broken across the board, and it's not even broken for all SAMD51s, which I suspect is going to make it harder to figure out what the actual problem is and get it fixed. If it was just broken for everything, probably be easier to figure out. Although narrowing it down to the specific build right here, this should help in figuring it out, because we could go find, like, what was the change from this one, and then we have something to go off of at least. So we're going to go back to bootloader. We are going to load this one more time, 8CF. I added your bubbles thing to a little toy I'm making. I'll show you that in a minute before I wrap up. I saw you put a new one up this morning in one of the rooms. I haven't had a chance to look at the new one yet. Okay, this one is definitely broken, yeah. We got the same thing here. So we're gonna take boot out this one. FEA, no, is that right? Yeah. What? No, hold on. What? Close this. Yeah, this is wrong. This says 8CF, and this says FEA. Close this. Refresh this. boot out not get written? Unplug. Replug. What's this? It sure seems like this still says FEA. Oh, that is a humongous bummer, because that means that PyCharm is just lying to me. PyCharm is telling me this is the file, and it just isn't. Oh man, that's not something I want to think is possible. Reload, and it just doesn't make a difference. Reload, open, and it's still wrong. Okay. Close that, close this. You open this? Boy, that's not gonna work for me. I don't want to have to second guess if the code I'm seeing is actually the code or not. And this is boot out. There's no, not like looking at the wrong file. Boot out.txt. This is on CircuitPy. I have one device connected. Shows only one device here, CircuitPy. These are different things. Trying the first non-working one. The Pi badge. Oh, that might have just messed up the chat temporarily. If I open it here, it shows correct. But I already know that I don't trust this text editor, because I already know that this text editor does sometimes lie to me. When the text in the file has changed, it doesn't show me the most up-to-date one sometimes. So I already don't trust that text editor. I've never seen this happen in PyCharm before. So I kind of trusted PyCharm. And now I'm learning maybe I shouldn't. So with boot out, it doesn't really matter. But you could imagine if this was CodePy, having to question whether the code you're seeing is actually the code that's in it just makes troubleshooting a nightmare. I don't know, this will not update. And it knows that it's not that. The computer knows, just PyCharm doesn't. Computer knows. Computer knows this is not the text. Oh, that's a bummer. That is a bummer. Oh well. A different bummer than what we were working on. Okay, so maybe this is somehow related to auto reload. But I was manually Control-C and Control-D and still not seeing it run. And even REPL removes the auto reload out of the mix. If I do Control-C, spam it a few times, and then print hello, we should see that even if auto reload was broken, I would think. I can't believe this is not showing me the right file. I'm gonna try to move past it though. That really bumps me out quite a bit, truthfully. I don't know, what can I use to be absolutely certain I'm actually looking at reality in the files. Okay. This is the most recent build which works correctly. This is the first build which starts failing as described above. Auto reload does work. So we're probably seeing two symptoms of the same root problem. Whatever it is may have broken auto reload and may be affecting display IO. Because both of those are good on FEA. And they're bad differently for each of us. Display IO is broken for me on 8CF, and auto reload is broken for you on 8CF. So if you want to follow up on this issue and put like what you tried on the Pi badge, and then mention the auto reload having the same breakpoint of working on FEA but not working on 8CF, that's probably good additional information. All right, so we figured out the first one where it's failing. I am gonna try out, or I'm gonna show Dexter what I'm working on here because it's using something that they created originally, but then I'm probably gonna call it for now. I have this on, we ran this last time on the Pico system, but I added, so I have your bubbles in there now. I have a lot less of them. I took it down to like 8 or 10, I think. Or maybe even 6. And the one, though, I have this one, which I can drive with the D-pad. And so my idea is I want to make it to where you move the one bubble around and you try to absorb the other one. So like whenever you run into a bubble that's smaller than your one that you're controlling, it'll absorb that one you ran into and it'll make your bubble a little bit bigger. So that way you have to like kind of absorb them all to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then whenever you absorb one, it will respawn a new one, and it will spawn a mixture of ones that are a little bit smaller than you and a little bit bigger than you, and you have to try not to touch the ones that are bigger than you, otherwise you restart back at the beginning, but you can absorb the ones that are smaller than you, and that makes you bigger, so eventually you absorb enough of the smaller ones, then you can eventually absorb the bigger ones because it grew your one. Yeah, drivable. I was calling this the bubble driver yesterday. I didn't have a good name for it, and so I was like, well, you drive a bubble with the D-pad, so let's go bubble driver. I think this will be a neat game, though. I'm pretty sure, I have no idea what the name of it is, but I'm pretty sure there's a game that is similar to this online. I think there was even, it was like even multiplayer, maybe using WebSockets or something, where multiple people, like every person playing had a bubble, and you just ran around and try to run into the other bubbles to absorb them. That's where I got the idea from. I think it'll be a fun little game to build on the Pico system, and I actually built it with, I try to make it platform independent, so workspace, flying boot out. Oh, now it updates to the other device. So I basically have a vector IO circle, and then I have all of your bubble code. The only thing I changed is just how many it makes. It's making 6 right now. And then for movement, I try to use UGame, microgame, because it abstracts away the buttons. It can do up button, down button, right button, and left button, and it can do it on a bunch of different devices. So this same code should work the same on the Pico system, which I'm running it on, as it does on the Pi Badge or the Pi Gamer. Should all work the same. Also, PyPyu M4, Deshipu's device. This should work the same on all of them. So theoretically, you should be able to play the same game on all those devices without really having to change CodePy at all. That's my hope anyway. I've only tried it on the Pico system so far. And I don't have any of the collisions built in yet. Like right now, the only thing that's going on are the bubbles and the driving. So there's no actual like collisions and absorbing and any of that stuff going on right now. But I think it'll be cool. Cool little game example, like to show like how to do a couple of different things. The vector IO, although I noticed the bubbles were display shapes and they seem to draw a little better that way. So maybe I'll change the drivable one to a display shapes also. But I think that'll be a neat little example game. And that was definitely very much came from your efforts with the bubbles. So thank you again for making those examples and sharing them. This like would not exist at all if not for your bubble examples. So definitely appreciate it. But with that, I think I'm gonna head out for now. Unfortunately, this issue that we found did kind of torpedo the back half of what I was working on there. So I added width and height and tile width and tile height to the tile grid. And I added all that stuff inside the core, and I think it's working. It seemed to work in the one example that we did test it on, but I definitely want to go back and test it on like the sprite sheet example, which is where when I first tried to do that, that's when we noticed this other problem, and then we went down the rabbit hole trying to learn more about it. So at some point, I'll need to go back and test these actual additions that I made to TileGrid on that multiple tile grid. But this actually seems like a pretty big issue. So realistically, whenever I get back to working on CircuitPython stuff, I will probably try to dig into this because we definitely want to try to get this solved pretty quick if we can. But that's what I'll do after that, is go back, test my tile grid stuff, and see if I actually managed to add those correctly. So, all right, thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you again, especially to Dexter for making those bubble examples and sharing them, as well as trying this stuff out on the Pi badge so that we can get extra data points here. I have a feeling that's going to be very helpful when we are trying to troubleshoot this. Thank you to all the other folks that were here. Keith stopped by for a little bit. Johnny, thank you for watching the YouTube chat and let me know when there was some less than great stuff in there, and offering to be a mod. If I don't figure out how to disable the chats, I will look into make mods, and I'll try to make you a mod next time. Scott is out for the next couple of weeks. I think he mentioned like 2 or 3 weeks, but it's not set in stone yet, so maybe it's more, maybe it's less, we'll see. But definitely, I assume this week is pretty much for sure, or next week, I guess. 6 days from today, yeah, 17th, he's definitely out. I assume he'll probably be out these other 2 as well, I think he mentioned. And I'll stream on those Fridays as long as nothing else comes up. So the next time that I will stream will be that Friday, the 17th, during the time that Deep Dive is normally on. And I'll drop links in the chat just like normal. But yeah, I'll do Friday that week and all the weeks that Scott's gone. As long as I don't have anything going on, I'll try to stream during the Deep Dive time, since I'd be working along and watching Deep Dive anyway. So I figure I might as well throw the stream on. But yeah, thanks everybody. I will see you next time on Friday, or if not, then Saturdays 10 a.m. Central Time is my normal day and time. So see you then.